You are listening to Arta Iranian Cultural Center for the next 30 minutes.
Before we begin, I want to tell you something. The word مبارزه or struggle. It is not new in Persian. It is not something that was invented for today's headline or for any single protest. It is woven into the fabric of who Iranians are. It lives in the story of ordinary people who century after century refuse to let anyone erase their identity. مبارزه is not just about politics. It's a part of Iranian culture. It is the way a mother teaches her daughter to stand tall. It is the way a father tells his son that dignity matters more than safety. It has always been there and it always will be. Today, we are going to walk through moments in Iran's modern history, small chapters of this ancient struggle. It starts in 1979, just weeks after the revolution, when thousands of brave women flooded the street of Tehran. They refused to accept the government's new rule, forcing them to cover their heads with the scarf. These women had fought hard for their freedom, and they weren't about to give it up. Fast forward to 2009. Millions of Iranians believed in democracy and showed up to vote. But when the results were rigged, they cried out, "Where is my vote?" Their peaceful demand was met with the bullets and prison cells, not answers. Then, in 2022, a tragedy sparked a fire across the nation. Mahsa Amini, a young Iranian Kurdish woman, died because of how she wore her scarf. Her death galvanized a people everywhere. Women burned their headscarf in protest, joined by students, workers, and artists, all united under the rallying cry, "Women, life, freedom." And now today, in what is being called the Lion and Sun Revolution, shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar have shut their doors and marched into the street. Within days, protests have spread to over 100 cities across every province. Under the ancient Lion and Sun flag, millions are chanting for their voice, their choice, their basic right, their culture, their dignity, and above all, their freedom. They call this the final battle. They demand change. They say the Pahlavi will return, and they vow they are taking their country back. Stay with us as we delve into these remarkable stories of courage, resistance, and hope. We pause to remember the brave people of Iran. They didn't choose to fight. They were forced to because their rights were taken away and their voices ignored. Imagine asking peacefully for justice and facing tear gas, prison, or worse, losing your own daughter and sons. Despite all the pain and loss, they never gave up. This courage, this spirit called MOBAREZEH. isn't just a word, it's a way of living, a testament to hope and resilience. Let's open our hearts, listen deeply, and try to understand what it truly means to keep standing no matter what.
Hello and welcome. Today we're having a conversation that is long overdue, not just for us, but for millions of people. We're going to talk about مبارزه, struggle, what it means, why it matters, and why, when it comes to Iran, it has never stopped.
And this isn't going to be a lecture. We're three friends sitting down, trying to understand something that connects our parents, our grandparents, and now us, to a country that has never stopped fighting for its dignity.
When we say مبارزه, we don't just mean protest or revolutions. We mean the act of standing up, knowing the cost, and choosing to stand anyway. That's what Iranians have done for decades. Civil disobedience, peaceful resistance, democratic struggle. They tried everything. And when one path was blocked, they found another.
As Gene Sharp wrote in From Dictatorship to Democracy, authoritarian systems don't survive on force alone. They survive because people cooperate. The moment people withdraw that cooperation, the whole structure begins to crack. And that's exactly what Iranians have done, again and again.
So let's walk through this together. 4 moments in history, 4 chapters of مبارزه. And we'll start from the very beginning. The moment the struggle was born. Tehran, March 8th, 1979, International Women's Day. Only weeks after the revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini issued a decree: all women must wear hijab in their workplace. He called unveiled women naked, but tens of thousands of women, nurses, students, mothers, lawyers, poured into the streets. They chanted, "We didn't have a revolution to go backwards." For 6 days, from March 8 to March 14, they marched. They were attacked, called traitors, branded as counter-revolutionaries and even prostitutes. But they did not stop, and for a moment they won. The regime was forced to temporarily withdraw the decree. It was the first act of مبارزه against the Islamic Republic, and it was led by women.
I want everyone to understand what just happened there. The revolution was barely weeks old. The entire country was still in chaos, and these women, many of whom had actually participated in the revolution themselves, immediately recognized that something was wrong.
That's what makes this so important. These weren't outsiders. These were women who had marched against the Shah. They wanted change, but when they saw that the new system was going to take away their rights, they didn't hesitate. They went right back into the streets.
And people forget, or they never knew that this happened. The regime doesn't want you to know that from day one. Its authority was challenged. From the very first week, Iranians said, "This is not what we fought for."
It also destroys the myth that the revolution had universal support, because it didn't. The moment restrictions began, resistance began. And that resistance, led by women, set the tone for everything that followed.
The tragedy is that the victory was temporary. By 1981, mandatory veiling was fully enforced. By 1983, the parliament passed a law, up to 74 lashes for women who didn't comply. The morality police were born. But the seed of resistance, that was planted in March 1979, and it never died.
Those women lit a torch, and every generation since has carried it out.
Tehran, June 2009. Iranians went to vote. Millions of them believed in a candidate named Mir Hossein Mousavi, a moderate reformer who promised accountability and democratic participation. The streets were alive with green ribbons, green signs, green hope. But when the results came, the regime declared that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had won in a landslide. No independent observers had been allowed. The counting process was opaque, and the people knew. Up to 3 million Iranians flooded the streets of Tehran. Their question was simple and devastating. Where is my vote? On June 20, a 26-year-old woman named Neda Agha Sultan was shot and killed on the street. A bystander filmed her dying moments. The video was seen around the world. She became the voice, the silent, wordless voice of a movement. The regime responded with show trials, mass arrests, and violence. The Green Movement was crushed, but its question was never answered.
This is the part of the story that breaks my heart. Because in 2009, Iranians did exactly what the world tells them to do. They tried democracy, they voted, they participated in the system. They played by the rules.
And the system cheated. The system looked them in the eye and said, "Your vote doesn't matter. Sit down."
And they didn't sit down. 3 million people in the streets, peacefully. No weapons, no violence, just a question. Where is my vote?
You know what Khamenei did? On June 18, he gave a Friday sermon. He endorsed the results, and he basically told the country this is over. Accept it or face the consequences.
And then Neda was killed, a 26-year-old music student. She wasn't even deeply political. She was just there, like millions of others, because she believed her voice should count. And they shot her.
President Obama mentioned her in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. Oxford University created a scholarship in her name. The world saw her, but the regime put on show trials that observers compared to Stalin's trials on the 1930s. They arrested intellectuals, journalists, activists, over 100 of the movement's key figures.
And this is what I want people to understand about MOBAREZEH in Iran. After 2009, Iranians learned something painful. Even when you do everything right, even when you try democracy, even when you stay peaceful, the system will not allow change. That realization didn't break them, it transformed them.
It proved that the problem isn't the people. The problem is the system, and that's why the struggle evolved.
Are you sure about this?
Everyone is here. Look around you.
My father says protests never change anything.
Maybe not one protest, but 47 years of them, that changes everything.
Every generation has to try, and every generation gets closer.
September 2022, a 20-year-old Iranian Kurdish woman named Mahsa Amini, her Kurdish name was Jina, was arrested by Iran's morality police for wearing her hijab improperly. 3 days later, she was dead. Her funeral in Kurdish town of Sabqez became the spark. And from that spark, a fire swept across Iran. Women burned their headscarves. They cut their hair. They stood on cars and danced in the streets without hijab. Students, workers, artists, and activists joined them. The slogan echoed in Kurdish, Persian, Azeri, and Baluchi. Woman, life, freedom. The regime killed hundreds. They arrested tens of thousands. They executed at least 8 men after sham trials. They blinded people with metal pellets, and still the people did not stop. In 2023, the European Parliament awarded the Sakharov Prize for freedom of thought to Mahsa Amini and the Woman Life Freedom Movement.
This movement was different from everything before it. The Green Movement was about democracy within the system. Woman, life, Freeman said, the system itself, it's the problem. The movement across ethnic and regional lines, appearing in cities, towns, and smaller communities.
And it was led by women, again, just like in 1979. 43 years later, Iranian women were still fighting the exact same battle. The rights to their own bodies, their own choices, their own lives.
But this time, something changed. The movement wasn't just in Tehran. It was in villages. It was in Kurdish regions, Baluch regions, Azeri regions. It crossed every ethnic, class, and geographic line.
One researcher said that even in remote villages, women heard the message and became aware of their rights. Men in those villages changed too. That's not a protest. That's a cultural earthquake.
And the regime was forced into retreats that once seemed impossible. The discourse around women's rights went from being taboo to being the central conversation in the country.
They want something that can never be taken back. Even if the regime survived, the people's consciousness didn't go back to sleep. Analysts called it unfinished, yet irreversible. And they were right, because what came next proved it.
December 28, 2025, Tehran's Grand Bazaar. The Iranian rial had collapsed to 1.42 million per dollar. Inflation was destroying lives. Shopkeepers, the bazaris, the heartbeat of Iran's economy, did something they hadn't done since 1979. They shut their shops and walked into the streets. People fight for their freedom. It was not only their economy, it was their basic rights that has been ignored by their government. Their freedom of speech, their right to protest, and better life. Within days, the protests spread to over 100 cities across all 31 provinces. It became the largest uprising since the 1979 revolution. But this time was different. This time, the people didn't just protest. They raised a flag, the lion and sun. The flag of Iran before the Islamic Republic. A flag that said, we are not asking for reform. We are taking our country back.
Let me tell you why this matters so much. For decades, the lion and sun flag was seen as a monarchist symbol. Many leftists, Republicans, and secular Iranians avoided it. But in 2026, something extraordinary happened. That flag transcended ideology. It became everyone's flag.
Because the people were not making a statement about monarchy or republic. They were making a statement about identity. They were saying the Islamic Republic doesn't represent us. This flag, our history, our civilization, that represents us.
And the regime understood exactly what that meant. This isn't a request. This is the end.
The numbers tell the story. This was the first time since 1979 that the bazaar itself, the economic backbone of the country, initiated a nationwide uprising. When the bazaaris move, the system shakes.
And the regime's response tells you everything about what they are. On January 8, shoot to kill orders were issued. Snipers were deployed. They used the SHK machine guns, heavy military weapons against unarmed civilians. In city of Rasht, security forces trapped protesters inside the bazaar and set it on fire. They blocked fire trucks from reaching the building. They shot people trying to surrender. They shot people trying to escape.
You know, the people of Iran are a lot different than the leaders of Iran. And it's very, very sad situation. But 32,000 people were killed over a relatively short period of time. They were going to hang 800.
Families are being pressured to lie about how their loved ones died. Some reports and videos have shown that the IRGC attacked hospitals to rob injured protesters, to ban them from receiving medical treatment. Even doctors and nurses who helped these protesters were detained and taken to jail. When people went to get back the bodies of their loved ones, they had to pay thousands of dollars per bullet. They had to pay the government that killed their loved ones. If they refused to pay or simply couldn't, they had to sign a paper stating that their loved ones were part of the government's casualties to trick the death toll. Additionally, detainees are held in hidden warehouses. Trials are conducted en masse without lawyers. People are being charged with capital crimes for the act of standing in the streets.
And still, the people did not stop.
In February, university students across Tehran, Isfahan, and Mashhad created Lion and Sun associations. They raised the flag on their campuses. They chanted "Woman, Life, Freedom" alongside Javid Shah. Students at Al-Zahra University demanded it be renamed to its pre-revolution name. Students at Sharif University called for restoring the name Arya-Mehr.
And outside Iran, the diaspora rose. In Munich, they raised a 50-meter lion and sun flag with 2 cranes. From Berlin to Toronto, from Los Angeles to Sydney, and even here in Adelaide, Iranian communities organized demonstrations in solidarity.
This is MOBAREZEH. This is what it looks like when a nation says, we have tried everything. We tried working within the system, we tried reform, we tried peaceful protests, we tried cultural resistance, and every single time they answered us with bullets. So now we answer with our identity, with our history, and with our flag.
And the bravery. I don't have words for the bravery. These people know what happens when you go into the street in Iran. They've seen 1979. They've seen 2009. They've seen 2022. They know that snipers wait on rooftops. They know about unmarked vans, the hidden prisons, and they go anyway.
Because they're not afraid anymore. That's the change. 47 years of suppression and the regime's greatest weapon, fear, has stopped working.
What strikes me most is not the pain. The pain is immense. What strikes me is the courage. Think about what it takes to walk into the street when you know there are snipers on the rooftop. Think about what it takes to raise a flag when you know they will come for you in the night. Think about what it takes to chant for freedom when the person next to you has just been shot. That is the courage of a people who have decided, after 47 years, after every path has been tried, after every peaceful door has been slammed shut, that their dignity is worth more than their fear. They are tired. Of course they are tired. But they've not given up. They've not sat down. They've not gone quiet. And that what makes them extraordinary. To the people of Iran, those inside the country and those watching from far away, this story is yours. It belongs to the grandmother who remembers 1979. It belongs to the mother who wore green. It belongs to the sister who burned her scarf. It belongs to the brother who raised their lion and son's flag. And it belongs to the child who has not yet been born, but who will one day ask, what did my family do when it mattered? The answer is, they stood up every time, no matter the cost. That is MOBAREZEH. That is Iran. Thank you for listening. Take care of each other and remember, somewhere now, someone is still standing.
نفر از دور داره میخونه آسمون وحشت ما سفره تانه شرم از این کابوس شرم از این افسوس شرم از این رنج بیهوده پرده زندگی از سر روی تلی از خاکستر از گلوی تو تا صدای ما بلا چاو بلا چاو بلا چاو 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 میپریم از خواب یه شب مهتاب یکی میگه آیادم ها یا همه با هم یا همه تنها ما که بیداریم تا فردا از گلوی تو تا صدای ما بلا چاو بلا چاو بلا چاو 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 یا همه با هم یا همه تنها روز نو یا شب بی فردا میپریم از خواب یه شب مهتاب یکی میگه آیادم ها که این گندم تو خیابونه خوشه خشم من و تو تشنه بارونه حق ما کم نیست زانوی غم نیست قلب ما که دور از هم نیست دنیا دنیای تازه، این یه آغازه، پنجره تو رویا بازه. یا همه با هم یا همه تنها، تو بلا چاو بلا چاو بلا چاو 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 میپریم از خواب، یه شب مهتاب ما که بیداریم